Yo, what's going on, yo? I'm Jebby Hoops, and today I will be handing out grades for each team in the 2025 NBA Draft. There were a few big trades and some wild picks that surprised everyone. There were also a lot of minor trades and pick swaps later in the draft, so they're not going to impact my grades, but the bigger moves like the Pelicans and Hawks trade will definitely affect the grades. But for the most part, the grades are just going to be based on the value, fit, and prospects still on the board. Make sure to like and subscribe and all that, I really appreciate it. I'm very close to 2k subs. I'm just going to go in order of each team's first pick. And anyway, let's just get right into it, starting off with the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavs had pick 1 and obviously took Cooper Flag, so they get an A+ for sure. Dallas just did what needed to be done, so not a lot needs to be said here. They are going to be a very good team next year with a great defense. And with Kyrie Irving out, Flag should get a lot of reps handling and creating, and I cannot wait to see him dominate on both ends of the floor. The Spurs had picks 2 and 14, taking Dylan Harper and Carter Bryant, and I'm giving them an A+ as well. Harper was a no-brainer pick in my opinion, and he should start right away, playing with the ball in his hands and without. And then Bryant at 14 makes a lot of sense with his defensive versatility, shooting, and off-ball game, so he'll be able to slot in next to their stars and make an impact, whilst developing the rest of his game. I wasn't as high on Bryant as some, but I'm still a big fan of the pick, so the Spurs get an A+ from me. The Sixers took VJ Edgecombe at 3 and then Janai Broom at 35, and from me they get an A-. VJ was the correct choice in my opinion. They are a bit crowded in the backcourt, but VJ is super talented and can play the 3 a bit. And then at 35, the Sixers needed a big or a forward. I do still like a Dembona, but Broom is just a hooper who's incredibly skilled and polished. I do have some worries about the athleticism and size, and Thiero was still on the board, but it's still a solid pick regardless that fits and could potentially act as a Timu Embiid. So I'm giving the Sixers an A-. The Hornets took 4 guys in this class, taking Con Knipple at 4, McNeely at 29, Sion James at 33, and then Ryan Kalkbrenner at 34. The Con pick makes sense, and I think he fits really nicely alongside LaMelo and Brandon Miller offensively, and Con is good enough on D. I'm not the biggest fan of McNeely, but that's solid value at 29. Sion brings some leadership, grit, and energy, and Kalkbrenner is a fantastic pick at 34, with his interior scoring, stretch potential, and elite defense. And I think he could become their starting center pretty quickly, so the Hornets had a very impressive draft. Next up we have the Jazz, who took Ace Bailey at 5, traded up for Walter Clayton Jr. at 18, and then took John Tonje at 53, and their draft gets a B+. Ace was a solid option at 5 with his shot making, shooting, and defensive potential. There were probably better players available, and the Jazz haven't gotten a ton out of their recent picks, but I like Will Hardy as a coach and he could be great for Ace's development. And Walter Clayton at 18 is another nice pick. They do have a ton of young guards, but Clayton's shooting is just worth taking. And then Tonje at 53 is solid value for another bucket getter. The Jazz still need more talent and will probably be bad again next year, but this draft was solid, so they get a B+. Now we have the Wizards, who selected Trey Johnson at 6, Will Riley at 21, and then Jameer Watkins at 43, and I'm giving them a C+. I like Trey Johnson, and Washington needed his shooting and shot making. Will Riley is another interesting swing with his shot making and playmaking, but I'm not a huge fan of the fit given the guys they already have. And Watkins is solid in the second round with his slashing and defense, but I'm very unsure of the offense as a 23-year-old. So this does feel a bit harsh, but I'm giving the Wizards a C+. The Pelicans had a very interesting draft, taking Fears at 7, trading pick 23 and the best of the Bucks and their pick next year for pick 13, to then take Derek Queen and then Micah Peavy at 40, and I'm giving them a C-. Fears at 7 was a bit of a reach with some very talented guys still available, but if they wanted a guard and buy his creation, shooting development and playmaking, I can understand the pick for sure. Derek Queen is a great player. It's a bit of a weird fit with Zion, but maybe they move on from him, and they have good defenders to put around him, so I like it. But trading that 2026 pick is extremely risky, given Dame's injury and the Bucks issues, as well as Zion's status and how stacked the West is. So that could end up being a very high pick in a stacked class. So I just cannot give them a better grade, even though Fears and Queen are very intriguing picks. PV is also fine at 40, but his production is pretty underwhelming for a guy who's almost 24. So the Pelicans get a C-. The Brooklyn Nets get an F. Man, That was about as rough of a draft as possible, with multiple reaches and just an indefensible pick 8 in Yegor Demon, with Malwatch, CMB, Asenge, and like 20 other guys being better prospects. Traore was a solid upside swing at 19, Powell at 22 is understandable with his tools and athleticism, and Sarif and Wolf are fine I guess, but just underwhelming picks given the guys still available. And taking 4 guys who need the ball, are good passers with turnover issues and shooting concerns is just weird, but they do have a philosophy I guess, and at least they'll suck next year for a chance to get a really special talent in the 2026 draft, but for this draft haul they get an F. The Raptors had picks 9 and 39, taking Colin Murray-Boyles and Florida's Elijah Martin, and they get a B+. I love CMB, and at 9 that's excellent value, although I do think the fit with Scotty is a bit weird, and Malawach could have been an option. But CMB is a special defender and super skilled offensively, so even though the fit is strange, I think they'll figure it out. Elijah Martin at 39 was also a little weird. He's a 6'3 off guard, they already have Quickly and Shed, and there were just better guys available, but still the Raptors get a B+ from me. Now we have the Suns who took Kaman Malawach at 10, Rasheer Fleming at 31, and then Kobe Breyer at 41, and they get an A+. The Suns getting Malawach at 10 was a dream outcome. I had him ranked as the 4th best guy in the class. He is very raw and may take some time, but his size, touch, play finishing, and defensive upside is very impressive. The Suns also traded 29 and a future first for Mark Williams, so he could be like a placeholder until Malawach is ready. They also took Rasheer Fleming at 31, which is a great pick with his defensive versatility, athleticism, and shooting. And Breyer as a sniper at 41 is fine. They'll need to make more moves as their team is a little clunky, but overall the Suns had a phenomenal draft and I'm giving them an A+. The Grizzlies are up next and they get a B. They traded up to pick 11 to take Cedric Coward, giving up pick 16, 2 future seconds and an Orlando first, so they must really like him. And whilst I'm not that high on him, I can still understand the pick with his tools, skill set and efficiency. Then at 48 they took Javon Small, which was a great pickup, as an athletic, versatile guard who can really shoot it and facilitate. And with the final pick they took Jemiah Meshack, who's an excellent defender who will be on a 2-way. They got their guy taking Coward, and Small is a hooper, so they could easily outperform this grade, but for me the Grizzlies get a B. Now we have Chicago who took Noah Asenge at 12 and then Lachlan Olbrich at 55, and I'm giving them an A+. Asenge was a fantastic pick, I had him in the 5 to 7 range. There's a bit of overlap with him and Martis, and he is still quite raw as the second youngest guy in the class, but his mobility at 6'11 is ridiculous and he was super productive this season, and I just really love his upside. And then Olbrich is a solid depth big at 55. The Bulls made the right pick at 12 and they've got some exciting pieces, so their draft gets an A+. The Thunder took Thomas Sorber at 15 and then Brooks Barnheiser at 44, and I'm giving them an A. Sorber is awesome, particularly on the defensive end, he's elite there and he should fit in perfectly next to Chet. The offense needs a lot of work, but he's very talented and maybe the foot injury scared some teams away, but I absolutely love the pick. And then Barnheiser is fine at 44, especially considering OKC probably weren't going to play or use anyone in the second anyway, given all the solid young pieces they already have. But he's still really solid, especially defensively, and Sorber was an excellent pick at 15, so the Thunder get an A. The Blazers traded down from 11 to 16 and got some nice assets, and then they shocked the world, taking Young Hansen out of Qingdao, and I'm giving them a C-. I actually like Yang, and I'm not super mad at the pick. To me, it was quite a reach, but maybe some other teams wanted him. But it's also just a weird fit, with Klingon being their 5 of the future, along with Ayton and Rob Will still being around. But Hansen is super skilled at 7'2", and it was awesome to see him get up from the crowd, and I hope he succeeds. But it was a reach, and there were a lot of great prospects who made more sense still available, so the Blazers get a C-. Now we have the Wolves who took Johan Berenger at 17, and then Rocco Zikarsky at 45, and they get a C+. Just a bit of a weird draft. I like both of their picks and I still believe in Rocco and think he's got a ton of upside. And Berenger is a crazy athlete and rim protector at 7 foot. And they can both learn off a Hall of Famer in Rudy Gobert. But taking 2 raw bigs with the team trying to contend is a bit odd. Plus Berenger at 17 was a little high for me, so Minnesota get a C+. At 20, the Heat took Kasparas Yakashonis and they get a B+. I'm not as high on Yakashonis as some, but at 20 that's very solid value and he should fit in nicely. In my opinion, there were a few better prospects on the board, but his combination of size, shooting, and playmaking is sick. The Heat are in a weird spot and need to make some moves, but I like KJ's potential, so the Heat get a B+. The Hawks traded back from 13 to 23 and still got a guy they were heavily linked to in Asa Newell. And for that pick and the pick they'll get next year, they get an A-. Asa was one of the best players available at 23. The fit is a bit weird with his archetype and limitations, but he's an awesome athlete and play finisher who can hit threes, and that pick next year could be insane. Maybe Korkbrenner at 23, or even just sticking at 13 and taking Sorber or Queen would have been better, but I like what the Hawks did, so they get an A-. The Kings ended up with pick 24 and 42 and took Nick Clifford and Maxime Reynaud, which is a very solid result, so they get a B+. Nick at 24 is a great pick. There's definitely some concerns about the jump in comp and him being an older prospect, but he was awesome this season and has a very well-rounded game, so should instantly make an impact. I'm not sure about Reynaud, particularly with the Kings roster, but he's a good athlete, very skilled offensively, and can shoot it, so at 42 that's a solid pick. So the Kings draft gets a B+. The Magic are up next, and in my opinion, they were one of the biggest winners of the draft, stealing Jace Richardson at 25 and then Noah Pender at 32. So they get an A+ for sure. I had Jace as a top 10 prospect. He's an awesome off-ball scorer and shooter with phenomenal touch. He is smaller at 6'2" in shoes and needs to improve as a playmaker. But the Magic have the perfect group to stick around him, and they also need his shooting, so that's just an ideal fit. And then Pender is sick as well. They traded 4 second-round picks to get him, so they must really like him, and so do I, as I had him as my 18th best prospect in the class. And his defense, passing, and versatility should see him earn minutes and impact pretty quickly. So the Magic had an incredible draft that deserves an A+. The Celtics took Hugo Gonzalez at 28, Amari Williams at 46, and then Max Schulger at 57, and I'm giving them a B. Gonzalez is an upside swing as a raw athletic two-way wing, Williams is an excellent defender and passer, and Schulger is a high-level shooter and secondary playmaker, and those two will both be on two-ways with a chance to earn guaranteed contracts. Gonzalez at 28 is a bit of a reach for me, but I like his upside, and the other two picks were great value, so the Celtics get a B. Now we have the Clippers, who took Yannick Konan-Niederhauser at 30 and then Kobe Sanders at 50, and they get a D+. Yannick was a reach at 30, especially with Korkbrenner, Thiero, Pender, and Rasheer Fleming on the board. There's at least some hope with how much he improved over the years, and he has the tools to be solid, but his production was pretty poor throughout his collegiate career. And then Kobe Sanders was a good pickup at 50 as a skilled 6'8" playmaker who can shoot it, but the athleticism and career 1 BPM will be hard to overcome, so the Clippers get a D+. The Lakers are another massive winner of the draft, trading up to take Adu Thiero at 36, so they get an A+. Thiero is awesome and ended up at 14 on my big board. He's a freak athlete, excellent defender, and can handle and pass a bit. The shooting will need to come around to reach higher end outcomes, but Thiero should be able to make an impact with his energy, tools, and athleticism, and playing alongside Bron and Luka, he should make tons of highlight plays, so the Lakers get an A+. The Pistons took Chaz Lanier at 37, and I'm giving them a C-. Lanier is an elite high-volume shooter who tested really well at the Combine. He's pretty limited, but the Pistons could use another high-level shooter to take over from THJ and Beasley, so I understand the pick. I just had Cam Jones, Proctor, Markovic, and a few others as better prospects who also fit what the Pistons needed, so the Pistons get a C-. The Pacers had picks 38 and 54 and took Cam Jones and then Talon Peter at 54, and I'm giving them an A-. Cam Jones is an awesome fit as a guy who can handle, facilitate without turning it over, and shoot the ball, and he should play a role right away with Hallie being out for the year. And I'm not gonna lie, Talon Peter wasn't even on my radar, but the Pacers have made good decisions of late, and he looks like a solid pickup as a sniper who had a 72.8% true shooting this season, which is insane. So for me, the Pacers get an A-. The Bucks get an A+ for taking Bogolyub Markovic at 47. I had him ranked at 27, so he's a steal for sure. He's a super fluid mover at 7 foot, can pass, really shoot it, and was just extremely efficient offensively. His frame and defense needs a lot of work, and the Bucks have struggled to develop young guys, but it seems like he'll be stashed for another year. But Markovic is very talented, and I love this pick. The Cavs are up next and they took Tyrese Proctor at 49 and then Salyu Niang at 58, who will be stashed, and I'm giving them an A-. I love Tyrese Proctor and him falling to 49 was pretty puzzling to me. I think he's a real talent and has a very valuable skill set if he can iron out a few things. And then Niang at 58 as a stash player is solid as well, so the Cavs get an A-. The Knicks traded back a pick to 51 and took Mohamed Diawara, and I'm giving them a D+. I would have definitely taken some other guys, but I don't mind it as an upside swing who they can stash and let develop. So I'm giving the Knicks a D+. And then finally we have the Warriors, who had picked 52 and 56 and ended up taking Alex Tui and Will Richard, and I'm giving them an A. Tui is a great pick at 52, I had him in my top 40, he's a good team defender and ball mover and the shot is clean. And then Florida's Will Richard is another good bet as an athletic two-way wing who can shoot the ball. They got two guys who will probably BPA and fit into how they play, so for this draft the Warriors get an A. Alright, that is all I've got for this one. Let me know your thoughts below. Did I hate on your team's haul? Do you like who they got? Like and subscribe if you want to, I really appreciate it. And anyway, that's all I got. JB Hoops out.